Ever wondered why Darth Vader breathes and moves the way he does, beyond the obvious injuries? With over 36 years of Star Wars knowledge, my own 501st Vader costume, and one of my most popular character designs being Vader, I can confidently say I understand him and the universe of Star Wars. So if Star Wars has been your escape, join me as we deep dive into the lore today. Hey, and welcome back, all 415 of you beautiful people who have subscribed to AM's Cantina. In today's video, we're going to cover the Dark Lord, Darth Vader, his numerous injuries, enhancements, and the long-term physical and psychological effects they took over the course of his life until his death. In part 2, we'll delve even further into the psychological effects of his suit and the impact it had on his fighting abilities and force powers. Part 3 will cover in greater detail his suit overall. To start, we'll be analyzing Darth Vader as he was on the day he died in Episode 6, when he had truly become more machine than man. After losing the duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker suffered grievous injuries. Most notably, his limbs were amputated. His right leg was cut off just above the knee due to the angle of Obi-Wan's strike, though his left knee remained intact. When the medical droid attached his new limbs, however, it appeared they adjusted both legs to match in length, meaning more flesh was removed from his leg. This was likely to ensure both legs could handle the immense stress of supporting his new armored frame. For a force-sensitive being like Anakin, every loss of flesh was a further detachment from his humanity. Before we continue on any further, if you like this content, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. It would be an honor if you would join us. Vader's legs were not the only limbs that were completely replaced after Mustafar. He lost his right arm due to Count Dooku 2.5 inches below the elbow, and his left arm just an inch below due to Kenobi. These required entirely new forearms and hands. His prosthetics, however, were covered with an inferior grade of metallic strips that often snagged on the inside of his suit, even during duels. At times, Vader would simply tear his jumpsuit where his limbs snagged, but this was still a source of frustration. Despite the technological advancements of his time, the cybernetics were crude compared to his original limbs. There was a delay between what he thought about doing and the hands actually responding. His mechanical hands lacked the dexterity and sensitivity of his natural ones, making even basic tasks more difficult. Though it should be noted that in Episode 6 it does seem to cause him some sort of pain when his arm is injured. This might indicate that later on he did have sensitivity installed in at least his hands. Vader chose not to have sensation in his legs, likely a reflection of his hardened mindset, meaning he couldn't feel the ground beneath him as he walked. This lack of sensation, combined with the bulk and weight of his prosthetics, made movement difficult. He often had to rely on the Force just to simply walk. A little behind-the-scenes knowledge is that during the scene in Episode 6 when Luke is fighting Darth Vader, near the end you see Darth Vader stumble backwards. This is due to two things. One, the actual behind-the-scenes reason, is that during filming one of their test runs, the actor accidentally tripped on the cape as he was trying to step backwards. As somebody who's worn the costume, I can tell you it does hamper your backward movement if you're crouched down even slightly, especially if your cape touches the ground, which it does in Episode 6 for Vader. This led to when they filmed the scene, they made it so Darth Vader would just kind of crumple backwards. But the in-canon explanation is that during the fight with Luke earlier on, when he's kicked down the stairs, a cable in one of his legs snaps, causing a problem with the movement. The raised heel of his boots cantered him forward, making him feel as if he were going to teeter over constantly. This is not walking. Vader's buttocks, thighs, and pelvis were badly burned during his duel with Obi-Wan. However, in Episode 3, when medical droids remove what is left of Anakin's clothing, His pants frontal area, belt, and even pouch were still intact to some degree. This implies that his groin area, while severely burned, remained mostly intact. The fact that he survived such injuries suggests that while damaged, it could still heal. In Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader is being electrocuted by Palpatine, we see that his upper vertebrae, likely C2 to C4, have been replaced with cybernetics. This suggests that his neck sustained severe damage during his duel with Obi-Wan in Episode 3. Possibly when he tumbled down the hillside after losing his limbs, the vertebrae were likely crushed, necessitating cybernetic replacement to restore ability to move and breathe. In Kenobi, we see that without his helmet and gorget, the neck guard, Vader was essentially limp, held up by machinery. Once his helmet was secured, however, he could move again, indicating that the suit's supports were crucial for his mobility and breathing. When the suit failed, as in his duel with Luke on the Death Star, he quickly became incapacitated, losing the ability to move and even breathe properly. Vader lived in constant pain due to his injuries and limitations of his suit. His burns, nerve damage, and cybernetic replacement caused immense discomfort, which was always exacerbated by the suit's cumbersome design and claustrophobic nature. The chronic pain fueled his anger and strengthened his connection to the dark side, driving Anakin Skywalker deeper into the shadows of his psyche. The psychological toll of losing his limbs, being confined to a life support suit, and the emotional weight of his past, his betrayal of the Jedi, the loss of Padme, left him emotionally scarred. His physical injuries were only part of his suffering. The mental wounds were just as deep. Vader's ears were so badly burned that his eardrums melted, requiring cybernetic replacements. These allowed him to hear even outside the suit, demonstrating the advanced nature of the Star Wars cybernetics. His vocal cords were also severely damaged, reducing his voice to a mere whisper. His helmet also housed a sophisticated speech synthesizer that allowed him to speak in the deep mechanical voice we all know and recognize. The timing of the synthesizer was nearly perfect, but any slight delay would have been disorientating and frustrating, particularly for someone already living in a constant state of discomfort. Vader's eyes, though not replaced, were badly damaged from the immolation. While he could likely see up close, his distant vision would be impaired without the assistance of his helmet. The helmet's lenses were heavily tinted, and the odd shape of the mask further limited his peripheral vision and depth perception. He had to rely on various sensors and internal visual aids to compensate for these weaknesses. His mask contained buttons that could be controlled with his tongue, allowing him to manipulate different suit functions, such as his magnetic boots or visual magnification in his helmet. Though not explicitly showed in the films, legend sources and fan theories suggest that Vader's heart may have also sustained damage, either from his injuries on Mustafar or subsequent complications. His suit constantly monitored his heart and other organs, including his liver and kidneys, all of which were equipped with sensors to track his vital systems. These systems were critical to his survival, as even a minor failure could put him in mortal danger. Vader's lungs were severely damaged during his immolation, necessitating the iconic respirator that maintained his breathing. The belt boxes attached to his suit played a critical role in pulling oxygen into the system. If the suit failed, a tracheotomy hole allowed him to manually breathe for a short time. His mask expelled the CO2, the exhale creating his signature breathing sound. In The Empire Strikes Back, we see Vader had some control over his breathing system, as he could silence it when needed, such as when he fought Luke on Bespin. The belt boxes also contained filters to process other environmental gases, which allowed him to have function in various hazardous environments. Vader's injuries went far beyond just physical damage. His reliance on the suit for basic functions, combined with the constant pain and frustration from its limitations, shaped much of his psychological state. His disconnection from his original body, a living, breathing human, reinforced his transformation into a relentless Sith Lord. However, this same pain and reliance on machinery also left him in a state of vulnerability. The more machine he became, the further he drifted from humanity, but the injuries never allowed him to forget who he had once been.